December 6, 1917, the harbor of Halifax, Nova Scotia, lay quiet under a cold winter sky. Ships glided across the icy water, merchants prepared cargo, and families went about their day unaware that the city's fate would change in an instant. At 8:45 a.m., two ships collided, the French cargo vessel SS Mont-Blanc, carrying explosives, and the Norwegian vessel SS Imo. The initial impact seemed minor, almost routine, yet it triggered a chain reaction no one could anticipate. Flames began to spread on Mont-Blanc's deck, and panic rippled across the nearby harbor. Sailors and dock workers scrambled to escape, but few grasped the scale of the threat, building silently in their midst. Minutes later, the explosion occurred. The blast was unimaginable, a deafening roar that shattered windows miles away, a shockwave that leveled buildings, and a fireball that rose hundreds of feet into the sky. Debris rained down on the city. Thousands of lives were abruptly erased. Streets became chaotic scenes of smoke, rubble, and confusion. Survivors wandered through devastation, dazed and bleeding, searching for loved ones who might never be found. The initial shock killed thousands instantly. Homes, schools, and hospitals crumbled. Families were torn apart. Bodies were buried under debris. Some never recovered. The human cost was immense, yet the event was sanitized in official reports and newspaper coverage in the following days. Military and governmental authorities were cautious. This disaster had secret implications, with Mont-Blanc's cargo linked to wartime munitions, making some truths sensitive and deliberately obscured. Firefighters, medics, and ordinary citizens rushed into the chaos. Many acted without protective gear, unaware of the dangers from lingering explosions or fires caused by unstable chemicals aboard Mont-Blanc. Their bravery saved countless lives, but it came at tremendous personal risk. Many were injured, and some later died from complications of burns or inhalation of toxic smoke. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Medical staff had to improvise care in conditions unimaginable, treating severe burns, fractured bones, and trauma with limited resources. Families watched helplessly as loved ones were treated, praying for survival, and often witnessing horrors they could never erase from memory. The city's infrastructure was shattered. Communication lines were down, water mains broken. Fires raged in multiple locations. Residents who survived the initial blast faced cold, hunger, and uncertainty. Rescue teams worked tirelessly, but the magnitude of destruction made immediate recovery impossible. Every corner of Halifax bore the mark of disaster. Yet official narratives focused on controlled response and minimized the human tragedy in public statements. Amid the chaos, the secrecy surrounding Mont-Blanc's cargo added another layer of fear. Civilians were unaware of the full chemical and explosive potential. Yet some officials and military personnel understood the catastrophic potential and struggled to manage both the physical disaster and its sensitive implications. The city became a landscape of silent horror, its residents navigating rubble, fire, and uncertainty, while much of the truth remained hidden or sanitized. Stories of survival emerged. Children trapped in homes were rescued from rubble. Families huddled in makeshift shelters. People carried neighbors on their backs, moving them through streets destroyed by fire and debris. Yet these human stories, full of courage and tragedy, were rarely documented in official reports. The emotional and psychological toll was enormous. Post-traumatic stress, grief, and fear became permanent residents in Halifax for years. The blast also left lasting environmental consequences. Toxic chemicals, scattered debris, and contamination of the harbor posed ongoing risks. Fishing, shipping, and local industries faced disruption. The disaster, while immediate and violent, had reverberations for decades, shaping the city's memory, culture, and approach to safety in ways rarely acknowledged in public records. The Halifax Explosion illustrates a chilling truth. Some disasters strike with such sudden force that they erase ordinary life in an instant. Others erase themselves from collective memory, hidden behind official statements and military secrecy. Yet, for those who experienced the explosion, the families, the survivors, the rescuers, the events remain vivid, haunting, and impossible to forget. In this disaster, as in many others, the human cost was immense, and much of it went unrecorded. Lives were lost, futures altered, and ordinary existence shattered. The explosion may have been a moment in history books, but it was an eternity for those who lived through it. As the smoke began to clear, the full scale of the disaster emerged. Entire neighborhoods were flattened. Streets were littered with splintered wood, shattered glass, and the remnants of lives abruptly ended. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded. Families searched desperately among ruins for missing children, parents, and spouses. Some found loved ones alive, but scarred forever. Others found only silence. The human stories were harrowing. A mother dug frantically through debris, pulling out her child covered in soot but alive, while her husband's body lay beneath the collapsed remains of their home. A group of firefighters, barely recovering from injuries sustained during the initial explosion, returned to smoldering buildings, rescuing trapped families at great personal risk. These acts of bravery, while recorded in local newspapers, were overshadowed by the broader narrative of wartime logistics and military secrecy. Mont-Blanc's cargo, the munitions, explosives, and chemicals, was a secret few fully understood. Some officials feared public panic if the true danger became known. In the aftermath, stories of the explosion were carefully managed. The media highlighted heroism and the prompt response of emergency services, but the invisible human suffering, the psychological trauma, and the thousands whose lives were permanently altered were minimized, erased from the sanitized history of the event. Children who survived carried scars, both visible and invisible. Many lost parents or siblings. The trauma of witnessing friends, neighbors, and playmates vanish in a blink of an eye haunted their dreams. They returned to a city physically intact in parts, but emotionally and psychologically shattered. Schools had to reopen amidst rubble and grief, and families attempted to rebuild lives in the shadow of one of the largest man-made non-nuclear explosions in history. The disaster left an enduring mark on Halifax's landscape. Buildings were never repaired to their former glory. Some streets remained empty for years, a constant reminder of the fleeting nature of ordinary life and the suddenness with which it can be erased. The harbor, once a hub of commerce and activity, bore scars from floating debris, chemical contamination, and sunken ships. The disaster had immediate economic consequences, but the human cost loss, grief, trauma, and memory was immeasurable. Rescue workers and first responders faced long-term health issues. The combination of smoke inhalation, chemical exposure, and physical injury resulted in chronic illnesses for many. Some perished quietly in the following years, their deaths attributed to other causes, leaving the true toll of the Halifax explosion hidden in plain sight. In the years that followed, stories emerged of acts of extraordinary human courage. Families sheltered neighbors in ruined homes. Communities banded together to rebuild schools, hospitals, and houses. Yet, despite these efforts, the explosion became, in many ways, a forgotten chapter of history outside of Nova Scotia. Official records often downplayed the scale of destruction and the human suffering, emphasizing recovery, control, and military priorities. This selective memory highlights a painful truth. Disasters are not only about physical destruction, but also about what society chooses to remember and what it chooses to erase. The Halifax explosion teaches us that the human cost of disaster often extends far beyond the visible rubble, lingering in memory, psychology, and the very fabric of communities. Decades later, the ghost of December 6, 1917, still haunts Halifax. Memorials and museums now tell part of the story, but the depth of human suffering, the fear, and the invisible losses are impossible to fully capture. The city continues to carry the weight of lives lost, families displaced, and the trauma endured by generations. Some disasters explode with sound, fire, and immediate visibility. Others leave silent scars, altering lives in ways that are invisible yet profound. Halifax was both a violent eruption of human and material destruction and a lingering tale of lives erased from history. Even now, historians and researchers uncover letters, diaries, and personal accounts, piecing together a fuller picture of the erased human stories, revealing not only the scale of the disaster, but the depth of courage, tragedy, and resilience that defined it. The Halifax explosion reminds us, ordinary life can be obliterated in an instant. Human suffering can be hidden by secrecy, bureaucracy, or sanitized narratives. And while cities rebuild and governments document, the echoes of grief, heroism, and loss remain, waiting to be remembered, honored, and understood.